Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie puts out another plea for the return of her missing mother, Nancy Guthrie, where the FBI and local authorities are with the case. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Hungary today, meeting with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Rubio discussing the Russia-Ukraine war, China, and signing a key cooperation deal with Budapest. The Trump administration planning to transform how the U.S. sells weapons to allies, how the America First arms transfer strategy will work. Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the FDA will review a petition challenging ultra-processed foods, with 70% of Americans either obese or overweight. And at the Winter Games, Norway continues to lead all countries in medals, but hockey looks to be a North American affair. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Monday, February 16th. I'm Stephanie Cox. The FBI says there have been definitive updates in the case of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Meanwhile, NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie, her daughter, posting once again on Instagram, pleading for her mother's return. Here's the latest.
NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie Sunday posting another video to Instagram 2 weeks after her mother Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Savannah Guthrie once again asked whoever might have taken her mother to release her.
It's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope, and we still believe. And I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is that it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing. And we are here. And we believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
Investigators have so far not indicated any big break in the case, but the FBI says there have been strong definitive updates. A spokesperson for the FBI told the Epoch Times yesterday that a glove found near Guthrie's home appears to match one worn by a suspect seen in footage from the doorbell camera. The FBI says the found glove contains DNA, and they are waiting for results from forensic testing. The county sheriff's department says investigators collected DNA from Nancy Guthrie's home that doesn't belong to Guthrie or those in close contact with her. They are working to identify who it belongs to. Based on the doorbell camera footage, authorities have described the suspect as a man about 5'9" to 5'10" with an average build. The FBI also said he was wearing a 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker backpack. The Bureau has announced a $100,000 reward for information that could lead to Nancy Guthrie's recovery or the arrest and conviction of a suspect. Guthrie has been missing from her Arizona home since January 31st. Since then, several media outlets have received alleged ransom notes from an abductor. However, despite several pleas from the family, no one has been in touch.
And the FBI is asking anyone with information concerning the case to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 1-800-225-5324. Tips can also be submitted online at tips.fbi.gov. Meanwhile, social media platform X is down for thousands of users in the US and the UK this morning. According to Down Detector, more than 23,000 incidents were reported around 8 a.m. Eastern. Down Detector tracks outages using user-submitted reports and other sources. X did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The actual number of affected users may differ from the figures shown online as well. Former President Barack Obama wants to make it clear that he's never seen an alien. That comes after comments he made on a podcast went viral over the weekend. Speaking to host Brian Tyler Cohen, Obama answered a question about aliens by saying they're real, but I haven't seen them. He went on to say that the only way they're being held is if it's so secret even the president doesn't know. The clip went viral on social media, and now Obama is clarifying. He's saying what he meant was that he personally believes the odds are good that there are aliens out there somewhere. He reiterated that he has never seen any evidence that they have made contact with humans during his presidency. Next, Secretary of State Marco Rubio meeting Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Budapest today, the two signing a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement backed by President Trump. NTD's Daniel Monahan has key takeaways.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. and Hungary are entering a golden era of mutual relations.
And not simply because of the alignment of our people, but because of the relationship that you have with the President of the United States.
Trump has endorsed Orban ahead of Hungary's April elections, praising his stance on illegal immigration. Orban and his Fidesz party are facing their most serious challenge in the April 12th vote since he retook power in 2010. Rubio also addressed the Geneva talks on the Russia-Ukraine war scheduled for tomorrow and Wednesday. The talks include Russia, Ukraine, and the United States.
We're the only nation on earth that apparently can get both sides to the table to talk. I'm not here to insult anybody, but the United Nations hasn't been able to do it. There's no other country in Europe that's been able to do it.
Rubio says the U.S. is just trying to play a role in reaching a deal if possible.
We're not seeking to impose a deal on anybody. We're not trying to force anyone to take a deal they don't want to take.
The Secretary of State says he perceives a double standard in how the peacemaking efforts of President Trump are being treated.
Usually when you're trying to end wars, the international community applauds you. This is one of the few wars I've ever seen where some people in the international community condemn you.
Rubio also addressed Trump's visit to China in April.
It's got 1 billion-something people, second largest economy in the world. They have nuclear weapons. It would be crazy. Okay, it's insane for the United States and China not to have relations and interact with one another. Now, two big countries like this, do we have differences? We absolutely do.
Secretary of State Rubio's stop in Budapest follows his visit to Slovakia yesterday, after previously attending the Munich Security Conference in Germany. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Secretary of State says making a deal with Iran will be difficult. During his visit to Budapest, Rubio said it's difficult because the country is led by clerics who are, quote, making theological decisions, not geopolitical ones. Take a listen.
Look, doing a deal with Iran is not easy. I said it yesterday, I'll repeat it again today. I mean, we have to understand that Iran ultimately is governed and its decisions are governed by Shia clerics, radical Shia clerics, okay? These people make policy decisions on the basis of pure theology. That's how they make their decisions. So it's hard to do a deal with Iran. We've always said it's hard, but we're going to try. That's what the president is trying. I'm not going to prejudge those talks. I'm certainly not going to negotiate with Iran here in front of the press and on the stage. Our negotiators are on their way there now. They'll have meetings. We'll see what happens.
Rubio spoke as Iran's top diplomat met with the head of the UN nuclear watchdog agency today in Geneva. That's ahead of a second round of negotiations with the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. Meanwhile, over the weekend, President Trump said members of the new Board of Peace pledged more than $5 billion for the Gaza Strip. NTD's Jason Perry has that update.
Over the weekend, the Israel Defense Forces released this video of what they said were armed terrorists emerging from a tunnel near Israeli troops in the Gaza Strip. Israel said they struck 2 of those terrorists and then launched strikes on other terrorists throughout the Gaza Strip for what Israel said was in response to an alleged ceasefire violation. A man at a funeral in the Gaza Strip on Sunday, whose son was reportedly killed by an Israeli airstrike, said this about the newly established Board of Peace.
Do you believe that there is a Board of Peace? Do you believe that U.S. President Donald Trump would come to help us or defend us, the one who is supplying Israel with all sorts of deadly weapons?
However, on the same day, President Trump said in a post on Truth Social that members of the Board of Peace have pledged more than $5 billion toward reconstruction and humanitarian efforts for the Gaza Strip. This comes as Trump recently ordered a second aircraft carrier group to the Middle East amid ongoing talks with Iran over a nuclear deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said President Trump prefers diplomacy over military action against Iran.
Now, we're dealing with radical Shia clerics, okay? We're dealing with people who make geopolitical decisions on the basis of pure theology, and it's a complicated thing. I mean, no one's ever been able to do a successful deal with Iran, but we're going to try. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be traveling. I think they're traveling right now to have important meetings, and we'll see how that turns out.
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this on Sunday about a possible nuclear deal between the U.S. and Iran.
There shall be no enrichment capability, not stopping the enrichment process, but dismantle the equipment and the infrastructure that allows you to enrich in the first place.
In another development, the U.S. military said they conducted 10 strikes against more than 30 ISIS terrorist targets in Syria over the past 2 weeks. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The European Union Commissioner will travel to Washington this week to attend the Board of Peace meeting. She'll take part as an observer. A spokesperson today said the Commission is not becoming a member of the Board of Peace. He added that the EU is taking part because its longstanding commitment to implementing the ceasefire in Gaza compels it to. Next, the Trump administration is planning to transform how the U.S. sells arms to foreign allies and partners. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and War Secretary Pete Hegseth explaining President Trump's America First arms transfer strategy. In an op-ed on USA Today, Rubio and Hegseth saying Trump's executive order helps change how weapons are produced and delivered. They argue that timeliness is key, but there are long waiting lists under today's system. The Trump administration aims to change that by designing exportability into the systems from the very beginning and proactively selling to allies based on what America needs. Rubio and Hegseth say, quote, America needs partners with complementary, not necessarily identical capabilities. They argue Trump's strategy will shorten wait times, create new manufacturing capacity, and build resilience across supply chains. And coming up, it's President's Day, and we'll be taking a look at the tradition with a presidential historian. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. Fun fact, today actually is not President's Day. The official name for the holiday is Washington's birthday. The government considered changing it, but that never happened. Despite that, it became popularly known as President's Day. Most people now consider it a time to also honor other former presidents, including Abraham Lincoln. The modern calendar puts Washington's birth on February 22nd. In 1971, a 1971 law places the holiday on the third Monday of the month, though, and that's what brings us here today. So joining us to unpack the historical underpinnings of President's Day and the men they represent is Jane Hampton Cook, an award-winning author, presidential historian, and a former White House staffer. Great to have you with us today, Jane.
Thanks for having me.
Happy President's Day.
Yes.
Let's get stuck into
Happy
it.
President's Day.
How many of the founders saw Washington as, a model of virtue? They were all looking up to him in this way. So what can his legacy today teach us?
Now, he was a very virtuous man. He was very courteous. He was very respectful. He was known for being virtuous in his lifetime. There was a poem that Phyllis Wheatley wrote to him in 1775 that was about his virtues. And that his valor was known, but his virtues were known more. And George Washington died just less than 3 years after his presidency. It was December 1799. And then his birthday was about 2 months later. And his will had been published in newspapers across the country. It was an ongoing news story. And I think that people said, hey, we want to continually remember this great founder, this man who's the father of our country. And so that's really where President's Day kind of kicked off. There were balls that would be celebrated in his honor, and different states would do different things. And so, yes, that legislation in the 70s was to bring kind of some more uniformity to the calendar.
And following on with this idea of the virtue that he espoused, he often spoke about religion and morality as indispensable supports for a free society. How central were faith and personal responsibility to his vision for the new nation?
You know, he really believed that America needed to be a virtuous nation to be a free nation. And he had enough confidence in what he believed about religion to let it be free. We have freedom of religion in this country. But, you know, also George Washington frequently talked about providence. Providence meant God's presence in his day and age, and it's like the walking of God, the Holy Spirit. And George Washington used the term providence 568 times in his writings. So you see that it was really something that meant a great deal to him. And he told the American people on several occasions that we owe providence, you know, more than any other people on the earth, you know, to be our existence is because of the hand of God. And so he really lived that, and he spoke that out.
And he really shared that perspective with Abraham Lincoln, who also believed America had a God-given purpose, and he often quoted scripture in his speeches. How did his and their shared view of providence shape the way that you know, they led the country, and especially for Lincoln through the Civil War?
You know, Lincoln referred back to the founding quite a bit, and I think as the war began to percolate, and as he began to see Lincoln that the Civil War was going to happen, he looked back at the founding, and he believed it was his job to keep the Union together long term. And so he could have let the South go, and we could have been two separate countries, but instead Lincoln fought to keep America together ultimately. And he, you know, looked to God for that strength and that hope, and referred to that, you know, in his inaugural addresses and in his speeches. But Lincoln's birthday is February 12th. And so you have places like Illinois and other parts of the country that began to celebrate his birthday every year. So there were state holidays, and that's one reason that we look to Lincoln, is because his birthday was in February, so it was a way to celebrate both birthdays, President's Day.
Remarkably close together. So both Washington and Lincoln saw the U.S. as an experiment in ordered liberty, you know, a parting of ways from chaos or rule by mob, which we're surely seen in other areas around the world. But what warning signs do you think they might take note of in our culture and politics right now and warn people about?
You know, George Washington talked about the spirit of liberty, and he was worried, though, about the spirit of party. He really opposed political parties. If you go back and read his farewell address from 1796, it's on founders.archives.gov, you can see that a lot of what he said, George Washington's farewell address, was really right for today. He wanted the name American to be above all other designations, above being part of a state or a county or a city. The name American belongs to you in your national capacity. And so he told the people that. I think he would see the acrimony that's been brewing for years, but he, you know, it's just 24/7 now because of social media and our electronic way of communicating. So I think they would be concerned about that. Just where do we come together? When do we come together? And I think there needs to be more moments in our culture for that. And I think this America 250 year is a great chance to begin to look deeper into our nation's founding. I'm making short videos at America 250 Jane on YouTube.com and at Jane Hampton Cook on TikTok and other outlets, because I want Americans to just take a little moment to remind themselves about the history of our nation and the founding, because I want the spirit of liberty to be alive on our 250th anniversary, July 4, 2026.
Wonderful. And education, such a great way to remind us all of the history, and you do so well with that. For viewers who may be worrying about America drifting away from its founding principles, on this particular day, what's one concrete way they can honor the legacy of the founding fathers?
You know, I think going back and reading George Washington's farewell address. It's easily available. It was in 1796. I think that's a really concrete way today that you could do something. But I want to encourage people to choose to do one thing, maybe once a month between now and July, whether it's watch the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson or a TV show called Turn that was on AMC. Do something, read books, do something to reacquaint yourself. And I think the more that people do that, the more people will see we were a great and grateful nation. And that's what we need to be, moving forward.
Great to hear your insights today and your passion for this. Thank you so much, Jane Hampton-Cook.
Thank you so much.
And next, ultra-processed foods under scrutiny by the Trump administration. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying the government will act on a petition calling for closer scrutiny of the food products. The health secretary stopping short, though, of promising new regulations. We're digging into all of that with NTD's Daniel Monahan.
The FDA will consider a petition to revoke the safety status of dozens of processed refined carbohydrates. That is, unless food companies can prove they are safe and not contributing to health issues and obesity. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says something has gone wrong in the United States food supply, speaking on CBS's 60 Minutes.
And we're seeing in our population people who are obscenely obese and at the same time malnourished.
The health secretary says 70% of Americans are either obese or overweight.
And it's not because they got indolent or because we became lazy or because we suddenly developed giant appetites. It's because we're being given food that is low in nutrition and high in calories, and it's destroying our health.
The petition targets the so-called GRAS loophole, which was enacted by Congress in 1958. It has allowed the use of ingredients without a full government safety review because it lets food companies verify the safety of those items without oversight.
That loophole was hijacked by the industry, and it was used to add thousands upon thousands of new ingredients into our food supply. In Europe, there's only 400 legal ingredients. This agency does not know how many ingredients there are in American food.
Former FDA Commissioner David Kessler is behind the petition. He previously called out tobacco industry practices in the 1990s. He says the United States has been exposed to something over the last 40 years that our biology was never intended to handle.
Energy-dense, highly palatable, rapidly absorbable, ultra-processed foods that have altered our metabolism and have resulted in the greatest increase in chronic disease in our history.
Some diseases Kessler cites are type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, hypertension, abnormal lipids, fatty liver, heart attack, stroke, and heart failure.
They took starch, right? Those cheap, easy calories, and they converted those into a whole panoply of ingredients that it was able to reassemble. And those products are so rapidly absorbed in our system that they cause metabolic havoc. They target the brain reward circuits to keep us coming back for more. They trigger overeating.
Kessler says such reassembled ingredients in ultra-processed foods deprive people of any sense of fullness.
Those calories are not just empty, they're ending up in your liver. And that fat in your liver is going to migrate into other organs, and it's the cause of cardiometabolic disease.
The Consumer Brands Association says there's no agreed-upon scientific definition of ultra-processed foods. It says companies adhere to what it calls rigorous evidence-based safety standards to deliver what it calls safe, affordable, and convenient products. Meanwhile, former boxing heavyweight champion Mike Tyson had some advice for people to combat chronic disease and obesity, telling them to walk more and to be active.
And as time goes on, you do more and more, and you be more consistent with it. And it's not about how much you do, it's about the consistency.
Health Secretary Kennedy has stopped short of saying he would call for more government regulations. He says the government's job is to make sure the public is informed so everybody understands what they're getting. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you, Daniel. And a potential new milestone in America's nuclear energy landscape. The Departments of Energy and War yesterday, for the first time, transporting a nuclear microreactor from by plane from California to Utah.
Powering next-generation warfare will require us to move faster than our adversaries, to build a system that doesn't just equip our warfighters to fight, but equips them to win at extraordinary speed. Today is a monumental step towards building that system.
We went 40 or 50 years without building much in the nuclear space, and from executive orders only about 12 months ago, before July 4 of this year, we will have multiple nuclear reactors critical. That's speed, that's innovation, that's the start of a nuclear renaissance.
The agency's partnered with California-based Volar Atomics to fly one of the company's Ward microreactors on a C-17 aircraft without nuclear fuel. The Department of War saying before the flight, the successful delivery and installation of the reactor will unlock significant possibilities for the future of energy resilience and strategic independence. President Trump last May issued 4 executive orders aimed at boosting domestic nuclear deployment to meet ongoing energy demands for national security and AI, aimed at strengthening American nuclear energy capabilities. Secretary Wright said Trump's executive orders have reduced obstacles in pushing American energy development forward. And in other news, 2 high-profile detransitioner lawsuits are now headed for trial in early 2027. Chloe Cole received hormones and a double mastectomy at 15 years old. She's set for trial in April of next year. She's suing Kaiser Foundation hospitals and other providers, saying she suffered irreversible harm. Kaiser has previously said it followed medical standards of what it called gender-affirming care. Attorney Mark Trammell of the Center for American Liberty represents Cole and Luca Hine. Hine has a separate case against the University of Nebraska Medical Center and others. The cases build on last month's $2 million jury verdict in New York for Fox Varian. A surgeon and psychologist in that case were found liable for malpractice. One example was laid out in an October 2019 letter that the psychologist wrote to the surgeon in support of Varian's surgery. It contained errors and omitted coexisting mental issues, including that the person had autism and depression. Now, a quick look at the weather. Power outages and damaging winds as a storm system sweeps across the southeast. Tornado warnings were in effect from Mississippi to Florida this weekend. Lake Charles, Louisiana, hit by winds strong enough to overturn a horse trailer and a Mardi Gras float and send bits of an airport jet bridge flying into power lines. By late yesterday afternoon, PowerOutage.us reported around 11,000 customers without power in Texas and around 9,000 in Florida. The storm comes as the Northeast finally starts to thaw after a long, deadly winter storm. And Kilauea Volcano in Hawaii put on quite a show yesterday, erupting in lava fountains and sending ash and smoke into the sky. The U.S. Geological Survey reported that this marked the volcano's 42nd episode of lava fountaining. You'll want to see this beautiful footage. The eruptions, though, began right before 2 p.m. local time. And according to the National Weather Service, the plume from the eruption reached 35,000 feet above sea level. Scientists noted that the volcano has been experiencing intermittent eruptions since December of 2024. Activity has largely been concentrated at 2 vents, one to the north and another to the south, within a certain crater there. Renowned for its persistent activity, of course, Kilauea remains one of the most volcanically active sites on the planet. And coming up, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is pushing for expanded internet regulation, saying AI chatbots must be held accountable. And a former Ukrainian energy minister is accused of laundering millions of dollars in kickbacks. More on the corruption case that has shaken the wartime government after this. I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer continuing a push to gain more control over the internet. He's saying today all AI chatbots must be held to account.
One of the difficulties here is that the technology moves on so quickly that the legislation struggles to keep up, which is why for AI bots, for example, and chat bots, we need to take the necessary measures. So that's the one route.
The Prime Minister yesterday saying he's seeking broader powers to regulate internet access, which he says is needed to protect children from fast-changing digital risks. Britain's government said last month it would consult on an Australian-style social media ban for children under 16. Spain, Greece, and Slovenia have since said that they plan bans. And more AI chatbots will also be covered by a ban on creating sexualized images without the subject's consent. In Greece, an Israeli television producer is found dead in a hotel room in Athens. Her body was found yesterday after a relative failed to reach her several times. Police say the case is being treated as a suicide based on evidence and testimonies. Investigators found pills at the scene. The coroner also reported bruises on her neck. An investigation is now underway. Eden was a producer of the hit spy thriller called Tehran. The TV series won Best Drama Series at the 49th International Emmy Awards in 2021. And our hearts go out to her family and friends for their suffering. Next, in Australia, the alleged Bondi beach shooter making his first court appearance. He appeared by video link from prison today, but did not enter pleas to charges including murder and committing a terrorist attack. Of course, there were two, and one survived. The man has been accused of killing 15 people at a Jewish festival in Sydney last December. Authorities describe it as Australia's worst alleged terrorist attack. The defense lawyer saying it was too early to indicate how his client would plead. The accused is scheduled to return to court on April 9th. I'll be keeping you updated. Next, a former Ukrainian energy minister now accused of laundering millions of dollars of kickbacks. That's one day after he was detained in a corruption case that has sparked a political crisis last November. Here are the details.
Former Ukrainian energy minister German Halushenko was accused on Monday of laundering millions of dollars of kickbacks in a major graft probe that has shaken the country's wartime government. He was detained while trying to leave the country, anti-corruption authorities had said on Sunday, without naming Halushenko at the time. He had served as energy minister from 2021 to 2025. He was justice minister when he was forced to resign last November amid the fallout over the scandal. Halushenko is now one of the most senior officials detained in the so-called Midas case over an alleged $100 million kickback scheme at the state nuclear company. The news comes as the country struggles to keep the heat on for its residents in winter amid Russian attacks targeting Ukraine's energy systems. In a statement on Monday, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine said Halushenko was, quote, exposed for money laundering and participation in a criminal organization. It said more than $7 million had been transferred to foreign accounts, naming Halushenko's wife and 4 children as beneficiaries. Some was spent on elite schools in Switzerland for the children, and some was put in a deposit for the family to spend, the agency said. Halushenko has denied wrongdoing. He did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Midas case has ensnared a number of senior officials and business elites. It sparked a political scandal last year, leading to the ouster of President Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff and fueling new public anger at lingering corruption as Ukraine fights Russia in its 4-year war. It has also caused concern among Kyiv's Western allies. Battling corruption is a key priority in Ukraine's reform efforts as it works to gain membership of the European Union.
Next, an update from the Winter Olympics in Milan. 2 young athletes, both of American Chinese heritage, here in the spotlight. That's for their quite different paths in relation to and opinions on China. Figure skater Alysa Liu, representing Team USA, just won a gold medal. Her father told NTD that he's taking about 20 family members to Milan for more of her upcoming games next week. NTD's Flora Hua has that story.
Both athletes were born and raised in California, but one of them chose not to compete for her homeland, the United States, and went with China instead. Eileen Gu has brought 4 Olympic medals under Communist China's flag, including 2 gold medals when she competed in Beijing. Gu made $23 million last year alone after being showered with Chinese endorsement deals. Her mother is a Chinese immigrant. Sports isn't Gu's only specialty. She's also majored in international relations at Stanford University. When Time magazine asked her about Beijing's suppression of the Uyghur ethnic group, Gu said it's not her business. Gold medalist Alysa Liu also competed in the Winter Olympics in Beijing. The U.S. State Department took special precautions during her stay there, assigning security guards to her 24 hours a day. Why? Because the 16-year-old was targeted by Chinese spies while she was preparing for the games. They were after her father, Arthur Liu. Liu was a student activist who escaped China during the 1989 Tiananmen massacre. Decades later, the CCP is still targeting Liu's family. FBI agents broke the news to Alysa that her family could face danger and said they would ensure her safety. The young skater told media that Chinese spies were trying to intimidate them so that her father would never organize anti-CCP protests again. She said the experience made her understand her dad's choice to speak out even more. Flora Hua, NTD News.
Chinese AI systems are heavily censoring Falun Gong. That's according to a new report from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. The study found that major Chinese developed models produced 0 responses in Chinese. They also produced far fewer English responses on Falun Gong than nearly any other sensitive topic. The report shows these systems not only refuse to answer, but also distort narratives. And they echoed the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda by framing Falun Gong as a public threat. Falun Gong is a peaceful meditation practice based on the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Researchers warn this pattern demonstrates how AI is being weaponized to export censorship and political influence beyond China's borders. China is already the world's largest exporter of AI surveillance technologies. Experts say democratic societies must adopt safeguards to protect free expression and prevent authoritarian messaging from spreading through AI tools globally. Coming up, at the Winter Games, Norway continues to lead all countries in medals, but hockey looks to be a North American affair. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And in the heart of Rome, a Renaissance palace guards its secrets. Now a museum that unveils ancient treasures once owned by the city's noble families. Let's step inside and uncover the history after this break. Welcome back. Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, good to have you in the studio. There's so much going on. Of course, plenty of Olympics to discuss. But let's start with what's on the schedule for today.
Yeah, right now we've got the U.S. women's hockey team playing Sweden in the playoff semifinals. Right now, it's midway through the third period. U.S. has a commanding 5-0 lead. Now, the U.S. team has been very dominant in these Olympics thus far. Coming into this game, they had outscored their five previous opponents by a score of 26-1. No one has scored on them since the very first game of the Olympics. So if you add that 5-0 advantage right now, it's 31-1 right now in their total goals scored versus goal allowed for the U.S. women's team. Very dominant. Should they win, they would face the winner of the Canada versus Switzerland game. That'll be played this afternoon. Now, women's hockey has only been an Olympic sport since 1998, but in 6 of the 7 gold medal games, it's come down to the U.S. versus Canada. Canada has won 4 of those 6 games. We could be looking at a 7th very soon. At the very least, the U.S. should at least get a medal in this event. I mean, overall, Team USA hit a bit of a drought, not getting any kind of medal yesterday, and they have yet got one today. We still have some medaling events going on, though. We've got the women's freestyle skiing in the big air final. We also have figure skating going on today. There'll be the pair skating finals this afternoon, at least this afternoon local time, I should say. Plus men's ski jumping finals and women's bobsleigh. So plenty of more opportunities for some medals here, Steph.
For sure, I'm hopeful. But not only that, the hockey has been getting quite a few headlines, especially because they have NHL players present. That's quite a new thing for a few years. How's Team USA doing all through those 3 games that they've had?
Yeah, Team USA definitely, the men's team has definitely missed their NHL players. They're doing very well right now. They've won all 3 of their games thus far, beating Latvia, Denmark, and Germany. So they are already the number 2 seed in the upcoming men's playoffs here. Canada is the top seed. Now the winner, the U.S. is going to play the winner between Sweden and Latvia next. That'll be in the quarterfinals of the playoffs, and the playoffs are single elimination. But I think expectations are that if you're going to win gold, you're going to have to beat Canada, just like in the women's hockey. Now, should the U.S. and Canada both win out in these playoffs, they will also meet in the finals here in the gold medal game. They did that last in 2010 when Canada broke the U.S.'s heart in overtime there, a very memorable game. Now, if you remember last year, the U.S. and Canada met twice in the 4 nations face-off. Both games very intense, so hopefully we get a rematch. I'm looking forward to a rematch here, stuff.
All right, we'll keep our eyes out. Elsewhere in the games, though, things have certainly heated up in curling, which is, considered a gentleman's sport.
Like
so
golf.
What's going on there?
I know, right? Yeah, there was some cheating allegations. This is last Friday. The men's Canada team on Friday during a match against Sweden. Now, those are the 2 favorites for the men's gold. Swedish team alleged that Canada's Mark Kennedy double-touched the stone, meaning he touched it a second time after having released it. Now, rules state you can only touch the attached handle, and you have to release it before it gets to the green line, the hog line there, as you can see, it's called. Replays seem to show that it was indeed double touched, but officials do not use replays for whatever reason. And when the Swedish team made the allegations, Kennedy defended using some profane outbursts really to defend himself. The match was briefly halted. Now, Kennedy said on Saturday he's never taken to the ice with the intention of getting an advantage through cheating. So officials responded to all this by putting extra referees at the matches right at the green line, the hog line. They ended up calling 2 double touch infractions, not in Canada yesterday, but overall yesterday, which is a very rare infraction. Players, though, did not like the extra monitoring, so now they pulled the referees back, and we're back to, kind of on the honor system, it would appear with curling. So they're back to, being gentlemen, I assume.
Very well. I mean, an outburst is not encouraged, but it's sort of understandable under all that pressure, I guess.
I guess so,
Well, thanks so much for the update.
Thank you,
Steve Martin. Okay, next up, a Renaissance palace turned museum in Rome is displaying ancient artifacts that once belonged to the city's noble families. Close to some of Rome's most iconic landmarks, the pieces remain tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the Italian capital. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
The Colosseum, Trevi Fountain, and Spanish Steps are just a few of Rome's famous sites. Among the landmarks, Roman antiquities sit quietly in Palazzo al Temps. Tourist Francesca Sabatini was surprised by the calm atmosphere.
It's crazy. It's like a hidden gem in the middle of Rome. We're right next to Piazza Navona, and there's 2 people in the museum with us. So it's a beautiful break, a beautiful parenthesis in the heart of the city.
In a large square courtyard, statues rest in arches around the perimeter. Inside, the Palazzo al Temps houses collections of antiquities from several Italian noble families. Museum director Chiara Giobbe explains how the museum shows a different side of Rome.
When you cross the threshold of the museum, you enter into this relaxing and beautiful atmosphere, so it can be a chance to stop and enjoy the beauty of the ornamentation and the works, and breathe in the art and culture outside of the usual well-known and traveled tourist routes.
The museum hosts ancient sculptures discovered over the centuries. Excavations in Rome have recovered the statue of Ares, the Greek god of war, with the baby Eris playing around his ankles. Another sculpture depicts Hermes. Altogether, there are nearly 1 million artifacts from archaeological digs around the city.
Palazzo Altemps has about 70,000 visitors a year, so it's definitely not a museum that gets a lot of visitors because it's outside of the usual routes of the tour operators. I think when people come to Rome, they go to see just a few monuments and a few important piazzas, and they don't have time to visit everything. So our visitors are, above all, people who are passionate about art history and archaeology.
The artifacts at the museum are frequently loaned to museums around the world. Archaeologists and academics can also apply for special access for their research. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And today is the Lunar New Year's Eve. But back here in the U.S., celebrations were in full swing yesterday at the new Middletown department store in upstate New York. Local officials were there to watch the lion dance and to celebrate with the community.
To see New Middletown and the merchants all involved in this celebration and to be able to bring it right in our downtown is amazing.
And the dancing, the music, it has just been beyond wonderful, beyond beautiful, and so enlightening, and we're just so happy to have such a wonderful store and wonderful culture here down in the downtown area.
Students from the local Northern Arts Academy also put on a beautiful performance which featured classical Chinese dancing and music. With the growing number of Asian community members in Middletown, the celebrations showcase a boost of Chinese culture within the local community. This year celebrates the Year of the Horse, which some say can signify rapid change, fresh opportunities, and personal growth. And unfortunately, that's all we have time for this hour. But if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox. Thanks for watching.